The Nile, a river of life flowing through the sands of time. For millennia, it has seen dynasties rise and fall. Among its most famous rulers, Cleopatra. We picture her as the quintessential Egyptian queen, with coal-lined eyes and royal splendor. But this image is an illusion. Cleopatra was not ethnically Egyptian. Her family hailed from Macedonia, Greece, descendants of a general who served Alexander the Great. For nearly 3 centuries, her family ruled Egypt, but remained stubbornly Greek in language, customs, and religion. Cleopatra's story is unique. She was a Greek queen who chose to become Egyptian. This challenges everything we've seen in films and art. History reveals a world of political turmoil and clashing cultures. To understand Cleopatra, we must look not to the age of the pyramids, but to the era of Alexander the Great. His conquest set the stage for her family's rule. The story of the last pharaoh is the final chapter of a Greek adventure in Egypt. Cleopatra, through her choices, built a bridge between 2 worlds. She became more than her ancestry intended. Her legacy is not just about blood, but about identity. She was the last queen of Egypt, but her roots were far from the Nile, and yet she would become its most legendary ruler. Our journey begins with Alexander the Great, the young Macedonian king. In the 4th century BC, he led his armies out of Greece, conquering Persia and beyond. In 332 BC, Alexander arrived in Egypt, welcomed as a liberator from Persian rule. Crowned pharaoh, he founded Alexandria, a city destined to become a beacon of Greek culture and learning. The Library of Alexandria would draw the brightest minds of the ancient world, but Alexander's time in Egypt was brief. His ambitions pulled him eastward. He died young, leaving behind a fractured empire. His generals, the Diadochi, fought for control, carving up his conquests. Among them was Ptolemy, Alexander's trusted friend. Ptolemy seized Egypt, recognizing its wealth and strategic value. In 305 BC, he declared himself King Ptolemy Sota, the savior. Thus began a new Greek dynasty on Egyptian soil, the Ptolemaic kingdom. The Ptolemies would rule for nearly 3 centuries, shaping Egypt's destiny. Their reign was marked by both brilliance and turmoil. They brought Greek culture to Egypt, but remained outsiders. The stage was set for Cleopatra, the last and most remarkable of their line. Her story would be shaped by the legacy of conquest and ambition. The world Alexander tried to unite was now divided, but Egypt stood apart, and in this land, Cleopatra would rise. The Ptolemaic dynasty was a Greek ruling class atop ancient Egyptian society. Their capital, Alexandria, was a Greek metropolis, distinct from the rest of Egypt. They spoke Greek, worshipped Greek gods, and lived as Greeks, even as they ruled as pharaohs. To legitimize their rule, they adopted Egyptian symbols and traditions, but only outwardly. Inside the palace, they clung to their Greek identity, even practicing sibling marriage to keep the bloodline pure. For generations, the Ptolemies remained almost exclusively Macedonian Greek. Cleopatra VII, born in 69 BC, was the product of this insular dynasty. By blood and culture, she was a Greek princess, yet she would become something more. Her reign would break the mold her ancestors had set. Cleopatra's childhood was spent in the marble palaces of Alexandria. A city of intellect and grandeur, she received a world-class Greek education, studying rhetoric, philosophy, and literature. The language of her home and court was Greek. But Cleopatra was different. She was exceptionally intelligent and curious about the world beyond her palace. The Ptolemaic court was rife with intrigue and danger. Survival required cunning and alliances. Cleopatra witnessed betrayal and power struggles firsthand, shaping her into a formidable leader. Unlike her ancestors, she learned the Egyptian language, a revolutionary act for her dynasty. For centuries, her family had ruled without speaking to their subjects in their own tongue. Cleopatra understood that to truly rule, she needed to connect with her people. Learning Egyptian was both a political strategy and a sign of respect. It marked the beginning of her transformation from Greek princess to Egyptian queen. The Ptolemies mastered the art of ruling without integrating. Alexandria was their Greek island in an Egyptian sea, controlling the country's wealth and grain. Greek was the language of power. Egyptians were governed by a foreign elite. Sibling marriage kept the bloodline exclusively Greek, reinforcing their separation. The Ptolemies saw themselves as heirs to Alexander's Hellenistic vision, not as Egyptian pharaohs. They patronized Greek arts and sciences, making Alexandria the intellectual capital of the world. But their focus on Hellenism left them distant from the culture they ruled. They remained landlords, extracting wealth while keeping Egypt at arm's length. Cleopatra was a revolutionary in her own family. She built bridges where her ancestors built walls. Learning Egyptian allowed her to speak directly to her people, bypassing Greek intermediaries. She embraced Egyptian religion, presenting herself as the living goddess Isis. This was more than propaganda. It was a powerful connection to native traditions. Cleopatra participated in religious festivals, earning the loyalty of the priesthood and the people. She understood that Egypt's strength lay in unity, not division. As Rome's shadow grew, she needed her subjects' support more than ever. By adopting Egyptian language and customs, she forged a new identity for her reign. Cleopatra was no longer just a foreign queen. She became the embodiment of Egypt itself. Her people supported her, seeing her as their true queen. In a dynasty plagued by strife, Cleopatra commanded rare loyalty. Her transformation was her greatest strength. She was Macedonian by blood, but Egyptian by choice. This choice defined her reign and her legacy. Why do we picture Cleopatra as an ethnic Egyptian? The answer lies in centuries of art, literature, and cinema. Roman historians painted her as an exotic, seductive queen, a trope that endured. European artists and writers, from Shakespeare to 19th-century painters, reimagined her through a romanticized lens. The era of Egyptomania further blurred her true origins. Hollywood cemented the myth, casting white actresses as Cleopatra and presenting her as the ultimate Egyptian queen. The 1963 film with Elizabeth Taylor created an unforgettable but fictional image. These portrayals blended her story with ancient Egypt, obscuring her Greek heritage. The myth became stronger than the reality. These depictions weren't malicious, but they overshadowed the truth. Cleopatra's identity was a complex blend of Greek roots and chosen Egyptian affinity. The real Cleopatra was far more fascinating than the legend. Cleopatra's reign was defined by the looming threat of Rome. Egypt's independence was at stake, and Cleopatra's rule became a high-stakes gamble. She couldn't match Rome's military might, so she relied on diplomacy and alliances. Her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were both political and personal. With Caesar, she secured her throne and bore him a son, Caesarion. After Caesar's death, she allied with Mark Antony, sharing both power and ambition. Together, they dreamed of a new Eastern Empire, but this put them at odds with Octavian in Rome. Octavian's propaganda painted Cleopatra as a threat to Rome. The conflict ended at the Battle of Actium. Antony and Cleopatra were defeated. Facing capture, they chose death over humiliation. With Cleopatra's death, the Ptolemaic dynasty ended. Egypt became a Roman province. Cleopatra's gamble failed, but her legend endured. She was the last pharaoh, fighting to the end for her kingdom. Cleopatra's story asks, what does it mean to belong? By blood, she was a foreigner, a Macedonian Greek. Yet she is remembered as Egypt's last pharaoh. Her identity was not inherited, but forged by choice. She learned her people's language, honored their gods, and became the embodiment of Isis. These were not the actions of a distant ruler, but of a leader who embraced her people. The Romans tried to cast her as an outsider, but to Egyptians she was their queen. Her legacy is not about bloodline, but about the power of identity. Cleopatra showed that who we are is shaped by the culture we embrace and the people we serve. She died an Egyptian queen not by ancestry, but by spirit. Her story is a reminder that identity is complex and self-defined. Through her choices, she earned her place in history. Cleopatra was the last pharaoh, ruling with an Egyptian